Joined now by NBC News' Garrett Haake in Washington, Amy Parnes, senior political correspondent for The Hill, and in New York, Republican strategist Susan Del Percio and Democratic strategist Basil Smikle. So, Garrett, where do things stand with this debate?
Well, Jose, to hear the Harris campaign tell it, the debate over the debates is over. This all stemmed from a rule change that the Harris campaign wanted, which would allow both candidates' microphones to stay open for the entire time. That's a change from what the debate rules had been when it was Biden versus Trump. The Harris campaign said they wanted this. Trump's campaign didn't. But when Trump himself was asked about it yesterday, he said basically that it was fine with him, although he was annoyed about the idea that the rules were changing. Trump's campaign has said nothing more since. So it's a bit of an open question about where we're going to land, but I think the bottom line here is this debate is almost certainly going to go forward because both candidates want to see it happen. Trump remains supremely confident in his abilities as a debater. He thinks it was his debate skills that knocked Joe Biden out of the race in the first place. And he told our colleague Jake Traylor yesterday that he's not even really preparing. He's just kind of riffing the way he likes to do as he gets ready for this showdown on September 10th. Here's a little of what Trump had to say about this yesterday.
I'm not spending a lot of time on it. I think my whole life I've been preparing for a debate. So, you know, there's a little debate prep, but I've always done it more or less the same way. And you have to know your subject. And I think I know my subject. I think I know it better than anybody.
Knowing his opponent is also key for Trump. He's worked with Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz in the past when he was preparing to face off with Biden. Now Tulsi Gabbard has been involved in his debate prep, such as it is this time around. Again, Jose, bottom line, I think you're pretty safe to be keeping an eye on Philly for that debate on September 10th. I do not see Trump backing away from that stage.
Garrett Haake, thank you very much. So, Amy, another big question mark is when will Vice President Harris sit for a lengthy interview? She said she would do one by the end of the month. That's this weekend. Do we know any, if there's been any movement on that front?
So people inside the campaign, Jose, tell me that it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when, it's not if. I think they're trying to plan that, obviously. They're trying to decide who would be best. She needs to be very purposeful in this interview. I think that's part of the delay. So she has to go in there with intention and talk about certain issues. It's not just being on the defensive. I think she wants to go on the offensive, and that's part of what the calculus is right now. But she certainly needs to. The pressure is on, obviously. I think people were waiting until after the convention, and she's been riding this high, and she needs to continue to do that and use all the tools possible to continue this momentum that she has right now.
Yeah, I mean, Basil, obviously reporters are clamoring for that sit down, but it's also been a line of attack from Trump. Today, he sent out a campaign email underlining it's been 37 days since Biden exited the race and still no Harris interview. To be clear, she has taken questions from the press, just not in a lengthy televised sit down. Does this really, you think, Basil, matter to anyone other than journalists?
Yeah, I do think it matters to some voters. But, I think to Amy's point earlier, Vice President Harris has to be very intentional about what she does do. The biggest task at hand for her in these next 70 days, maintain the momentum, get voters to trust her. So she's got to maintain that. She's got to do this with a tremendous amount of intentionality. But I also acknowledge that this line of attack from Donald Trump with respect to her not having thus far done this sit-down debate is part of sort of this larger strategy of seeding the ground with doubt. If you think about the press conference where he talked about the debate, he also said that Vice President Kamala Harris didn't want to debate him and that she wasn't smart. So all of this is sort of feeding into this larger line of attack where he would say, and Republicans would say, that she's not good at this, she's not smart enough. That's why she's ducking the issues and ducking him. That's clearly not the case, but it is part of this larger strategy of his to seed the ground with that kind of doubt and attack against her.
Yeah, I mean, and Susan, meanwhile, more than 200 former Bush, McCain, Romney officials have just endorsed Vice President Harris. But is that wing of the GOP able to persuade the Republicans of 2024?
Jose, as you know, I worked with the Lincoln Project in 2020, working for Republicans and independents for Biden. And back then, it was a permission structure for Republicans who were not happy with Trump to support Joe Biden. At this point, I think we're seeing that again. This is all about telling Republicans and right-leaning independents that it's okay. You're not a Democrat if you support Harris over Trump. But at the same time, I don't think it has the same power that it did in 2020. So what we're probably going to see is a lot more Republicans sitting on the couch instead of coming out to vote, which works for Team Harris. That's second best.
And Basil, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. endorsed Trump. He says the Trump camp actually once floated the prospect of him being Trump's running mate. What does that tell you about Trump campaign? What kind of planning and organization is there long term in this campaign when you see now the RFK Jr. factor?
Yeah, I've always felt that that RFK's entry into this race early on was going to be a problem for the Trump campaign rather than the Biden campaign. There was always that conversation. But I have to imagine that the Trump folks are just sitting back and saying, well, we don't even really need to talk to him unless he actually shows a lot more fealty than he already has. I just don't know how additive this endorsement is to the actual campaign, to the whatever ground game the Republicans might have. I don't know that he brings anything significant, especially when RFK's family has come out against him. I mean, there doesn't seem to be tremendous value added. So whatever RFK is going to him, RFK Jr. is going to the Trump campaign asking for or even demanding as a result of the endorsement, I have to think that the Trump folks themselves are saying, well, thank you, sit over there, and we'll call you when we need you.
Amy, do you think that the RFK endorsement could play a factor in Trump world?
I mean, this is a race on the margins, Jose, and so I think anything can sort of factor in here. I mean, when you think about the last race, it was Joe Biden won 40,000 votes over three states. And so I think anything here matters for both campaigns. I just don't know. I agree with Basil's point. I don't know how much he would need someone else beyond an RFK to kind of expand his base. And I don't know what it gets him.